As we prepare for Season 5 of the Amazing Build series and the release of Elatrion, we have to remember that not all hunters have access to the same gear, weapons, and especially jewels. So, I'm Darcblade with a budget build for the dual blades in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Now, the main purpose of a budget build is to provide a build for newer hunters who don't necessarily have access to a large jewel collection. Thus, the build makes use of a lot of alpha armor pieces and should allow newer players to farm more jewels for their collection. With the dual blades, this is one of the rare weapons that is actually going to make use of an elemental build. This is because the dual blades, along with a few other weapons, can really capitalise on the elemental values thanks to them being able to attack incredibly fast. Now, this build can use any element out there, but you would have to make a few changes. For the purpose of this video, I'll be demonstrating a dragon elemental build. So for this build, you'll need the Rimeguard Helm Alpha, the Rimeguard Mel Beta, the Rimeguard Vambraces Alpha, Fulgor Coil Alpha, and the Garuga Greaves Beta. I'm also using a Wormsbane Charm 5, although this, if you were using a different element, would be replaced to match whatever element you were using. And for my weapon, I'm using Death Row, which is the Ebony Adogeron Dual Blades. These simply have a elemental up augmentation attached to them, and then an augmentation of your choice, to which I've gone for a defense increase augmentation. However, if you were using a different weapon with a different element, I'd also recommend going for an affinity increase augmentation. As for the specialized tools, these are down to personal preference. Now, when it comes to the jewels, as always, these builds are made for players who don't have access to a large jewel collection, and thus the jewels featured in the jewel section of these budget builds are normally easier to obtain jewels. For this elemental DPS dual blade build, I'd recommend Vitality jewels for the health boost skill. I'd then recommend a Dragon jewel to max out the dragon attack. This Dragon jewel will be replaced to match whatever element you are using if you were to use a different element. And then finally, the last jewels, stick as many expert jewels as you can into the build. Of course, if you don't have what is featured here, you can swap out the jewels for other ones that you have available to you, and you should still have quite an effective build. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which would be 200 health and 200 stamina once you're on a hunt and you've taken all your relevant consumables. You have an attack of 357 with maxed out white sharpness. You have 60% base affinity, which can easily be 100% when we're taking into account weakness exploit and we're attacking monster weak points that have been tenderized through clutch claw attacks first. You have a dragon elemental rating of 600 with high elder seal, and as for your defense, you have a decent defense of 1008 that is strong against thunder, neutral against ice, but unfortunately slightly weak to the other elements. As for the skills, you've only got a few of them. First of all is Critical Eye at level 7. Critical Eye basically increases the base affinity of a build. You have Dragon Attack at level 6, increasing the dragon rating and damage of a build. If you were to use a different weapon with a different element, you would replace Dragon Attack to match whatever element you were using. So if you were using a Thunder weapon, for example, you'd swap out the Wormsbane Charm for the charm to match the Thunder element, thus giving you Thunder Attack level 6. Anyway, you'll have Health Boost level 3, allowing our health to get to that maximum of 200. You have Weakness Exploit level 3. Weakness Exploit is a skill that increases our affinity so long as we're attacking monster weak points, and should these weak points be tenderized through clutch claw attacks first, this increase to our affinity is even greater. At Weakness Exploit at level 3 you can have a maximum of 50% bonus affinity. You have Quick Sheath level 3, a byproduct of the armor we're wearing, but it's still kind of useful. It's a quality of life skill. It basically allows us to sheath the weapon a little bit more quickly. Anyway, you'll have Flinch 3 level 2, another byproduct of the armor we're wearing. Flinch 3 allows us to withstand and not react to small attacks, such as knockbacks from monsters or other players. You have Resuscitate level 1, which again is another byproduct of the armor we're wearing, but is a useful skill for the dual blades. Basically, when we are inflicted by a elemental blight or other abnormal status effect, we will gain improved evasion and it will reduce our stamina depletion. And then finally, for the skills, you also have Item Prolonger, allowing buffs we receive from items such as Might Seeds, Adamant Seeds and such to last a little bit longer. As for the set bonuses, we'll have two of them. First of all is Valkana's Divinity. For the 2 set bonus, we'll have Critical Element, allowing the elemental portion of our attack to deal more damage when we crit a monster. And as this build has high affinity, it means that the elemental damage should be quite high with this build. And finally, you'll have Anjanath's Dominance, Stamina Cap Up, allowing us to break our stamina cap of 150, allowing it to get to 200. Having stamina cap up is definitely useful, as this build does lack in stamina management skills. But there we have it. That is the budget dual blade build I'd recommend. But of course there are pros and cons to every build out there. Even the strongest, most powerful builds have a few cons to go alongside their massive pros. With the dual blade elemental DPS budget build, the biggest pro is its elemental damage output. If you're taking into account a monster's elemental weakness, you can rip through them easily thanks to having maxed out elemental attack, critical eye, weakness exploit, and of course critical element. The other pro for this build is stamina cap up. Normally when it comes to dual blade builds, it's wise to take some stamina management skills such as marathon runner and that. But with stamina cap up, we can kind of counter this, allowing us to stay in demon mode for even longer. And then finally, the last pro is that this build can be easily customized to use any element out there. If you are switching your weapon to a different element, as long as you're switching to a weapon that doesn't really require handicraft, you can easily customize this build to use any element in the game. But of course, there are cons. The biggest con, which is kind of linked to the pro of stamina cap up, is there is no stamina management skills on this build. Even though we are able to stay in demon mode longer thanks to stamina cap up, the recharge time on our stamina thanks to having no stamina surge is going to be a little bit of a pain. And finally, the last con is that this build has no handicraft, which means if we did want to swap weapons to a weapon that needed handicraft, we're going to be a little bit out of luck, and thus sharpness will be an issue if we were to swap weapons. But anyway, that is the budget dual blade elemental build I'd strongly recommend. It definitely is a powerful one, and during my testing, it's been one of the builds that has been able to take down monsters in the special arena really quickly. So long as you're taking into account a monster's elemental weakness, you should be able to rip through them and complete hunts very quickly with this build. So there you have it, that is the budget build for the dual blades. Of course, as you farm more and more, hunters will get more gear, weaponry, as well as expand their jewel collection. When this happens, I hope the other builds featured in the amazing build series will come in useful. So until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a budget build for the dual blades in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.